The Missing Heiress. Hidden Motives, Episode 3, A Lucas Sinclair Mystery. Written by Delilah Moonbeam, read by Silas. Chapter 1. Detective Lucas Sinclair made his way up the stone steps of the Ravenswood Police Department, coffee in hand. He nodded to the desk sergeant, who gave him an unusual look. "Someone waiting for you in your office," the sergeant said. "Been there for over an hour." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Did they give a name?" "William Russell." The coffee nearly slipped from Lucas's grasp. William Russell wasn't just wealthy, he was Ravenswood royalty, the kind of man whose name adorned hospital wings and university buildings. "You said he has been waiting over an hour?" The desk sergeant nodded. "Wouldn't talk to anyone else." Lucas quickened his pace. The Russell family rarely interacted with the police. They had people to handle their problems. Whatever brought William Russell to his office this morning had to be serious. He found Russell standing by the window, gazing out at the city. Tall and distinguished, with silver-streaked dark hair, he wore a tailored suit that probably cost more than Lucas's monthly salary. When the door opened, Russell turned, his face a careful mask that didn't quite hide his distress. "Mr. Russell," Lucas said, extending his hand. "I'm Detective Sinclair. I understand you've been waiting to speak with me." Russell's handshake was firm but brief. "Thank you for seeing me, Detective. I prefer discretion in this matter, which is why I came directly to you. Your reputation precedes you." Lucas gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Please, sit down. How can I help?" Russell settled into the chair, his posture perfect despite the tension evident in his shoulders. "My daughter, Evelyn, is missing. She's been missing for over 48 hours now." Lucas pulled out his notepad. "Have you filed a missing persons report?" "No." Russell's response was immediate. "That's precisely what I want to avoid. The publicity would be problematic." "Mr. Russell, with all due respect, that's standard procedure." "I understand police procedure, Detective," Russell interrupted, his tone softening only slightly when he saw Lucas's expression. "I'm willing to compensate you generously for handling this with discretion. Evelyn is my only child, and I'm concerned for her safety, but I also know how these matters can be distorted by the press." Lucas leaned back in his chair. "When did you last see your daughter?" 3 days ago, at a charity gala for the Ravenswood Conservancy. She's passionate about environmental causes." A flicker of pride crossed Russell's face. "She left early, said she had work to prepare for a business trip to Chicago the following day." "And she never made it to Chicago?" Her assistant confirmed she never boarded the flight. "Her car is missing from the garage, but her phone goes straight to voicemail." "This isn't like her, Detective. Evelyn is responsible, methodical. She wouldn't disappear without communication." Lucas studied the man across from him. Despite his composed exterior, William Russell's eyes betrayed a father's genuine worry. "Does Evelyn have any reason to want to disappear? Problems at work, relationship issues, financial troubles?" Russell's laugh was short and humorless. "Financial troubles? Hardly. She's the heir to Russell Enterprises. As for relationships, she's engaged to Ryan Caldwell, ambitious young man, heads a security consulting firm. And work? Well, she's being groomed to take over the company eventually. She thrives under pressure." Lucas jotted down notes. "I'll need to speak with her fiancé, colleagues, friends, anyone who might have insight into her recent state of mind. Of course, I've instructed everyone to cooperate fully." Russell reached into his jacket and produced a check with a staggering number of zeros. "A retainer for your services. There will be more upon her safe return." Lucas didn't touch the check. "Mr. Russell, I'm a police detective. I don't accept private payments for doing my job." Russell nodded as if expecting this response. "Then consider it a donation to the Ravenswood Police Benevolent Fund. I simply want to ensure this case receives priority attention." The door opened, and Officer Emily Carter appeared, stopping short when she saw Russell. "Ah, Emily," Lucas said. "Mr. Russell, this is Officer Carter, my partner. She'll be assisting with the investigation." Emily nodded professionally. "Mr. Russell?" Russell nodded and smiled politely before he stood, smoothing his already immaculate suit. "I should return home. I want to see if Evelyn has made contact in my absence. You'll come to the house to begin your investigation?" "We'll be there within the hour," Lucas assured him. "Please don't disturb anything in Evelyn's rooms. They may contain clues to her whereabouts." After Russell departed, Emily turned to Lucas. William Russell's daughter? This isn't going to be a standard missing persons case, is it? Lucas pocketed his notepad. No, and he doesn't treat it as one. Let's go. The Russell estate sprawled across 5 acres in Hillcrest, Ravenswood's most exclusive neighborhood. A wrought iron gate opened automatically as they approached, cameras tracking their movement up the curved driveway lined with perfectly manicured hedges. The mansion's massive oak door opened before they could knock, revealing a man in his early 30s with the polished good looks of someone accustomed to being photographed. His expression was appropriately concerned, but something about it struck Lucas as rehearsed. Ryan Caldwell. He introduced himself, extending his hand. Evelyn's fiancé. Mr. Russell said you'd be coming. Lucas shook his hand. Detective Sinclair, and this is Officer Carter. We understand you were one of the last people to see Evelyn before her disappearance. Ryan led them through a foyer larger than Lucas's entire apartment into an elegant sitting room. Yes, at the Conservancy Gala. She left around 10, said she needed to prepare for her Chicago trip. His voice caught slightly. I should have gone with her. Was that unusual? Emily asked. Her leaving events early? Not really. Evelyn takes her responsibilities at Russell Enterprises seriously. She often works late, prepares extensively for meetings. Ryan rubbed his temple. I've called everyone we know, checked all her favorite places. It's like she vanished. How would you describe Evelyn's state of mind recently? Lucas asked, watching Ryan's face carefully. Ryan considered the question. Focused. Perhaps a bit more stressed than usual, but that's normal before major business trips. She's been working on some environmental initiative that would change how Russell Enterprises approaches development projects. Any conflicts about that within the company? Some of the board members are traditional in their outlook, but William supports her vision. Ryan's perfect composure wavered slightly. I keep thinking I should have noticed something, some sign that she was troubled or in danger. Their conversation was interrupted by the click of heels on marble. A woman in her mid-40s entered, elegant in a way that spoke of careful cultivation rather than natural grace. Her blonde hair was pulled into a perfect chignon, her expression one of polite concern that didn't quite reach her eyes. Margaret Walsh, she introduced herself. Evelyn's stepmother. William mentioned you'd be coming by. Mrs. Walsh, Lucas nodded. We're trying to establish a timeline of Evelyn's last known movements. When did you last see her? Margaret gestured for them to sit, taking a high-backed chair for herself. At the gala, briefly. We don't typically spend much time together at these functions. Would you say you have a close relationship with your stepdaughter? Emily asked. Margaret's smile was practiced. Evelyn and I understand each other. She's dedicated to the business aspects of the Russell legacy. I maintain our family's social standing. It's a division of labor that works for everyone. Has Evelyn seemed different lately? Anxious? Secretive? Anything out of character? Lucas pressed. Detective, I wouldn't presume to know what's in character for Evelyn. She's always been intensely private, even as a child. If she was troubled, she certainly wouldn't confide in me. Margaret's tone was matter-of-fact, devoid of the emotional distress one might expect from a family member during a crisis. What about friends? Who does she confide in? Margaret gave a small, dismissive wave. Evelyn doesn't cultivate friendships so much as strategic alliances. Her assistant, Sophie, would know more about her personal habits than I would. Lucas exchanged a glance with Emily. Margaret's detachment was either a carefully constructed defense mechanism or evidence of a deeply fractured family dynamic. If you'll excuse me, Margaret said, rising gracefully, I have calls to make. I'm sure you understand this situation requires careful management of our social calendar. After she left, Ryan shook his head. Don't mind Margaret. She and Evelyn have always had a complicated relationship. Evelyn was 12 when William remarried. It wasn't an easy transition. We'd like to see Evelyn's rooms, Lucas said, and speak with her assistant if possible. Ryan nodded. Sophie's in Evelyn's study now, gathering her schedule information for you. I'll take you there. The east wing of the mansion felt different from the formal spaces they'd seen so far. Warmer, with personal touches that suggested genuine habitation rather than museum-like perfection. Ryan led them to a large study lined with bookshelves, where a young woman with auburn hair was organizing files with trembling hands. She looked up as they entered, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. "Oh, you must be the detectives. I'm Sophie Turner, Evelyn's assistant." Her voice wavered. "I've prepared her schedule for the past month, contact information for everyone she's met with recently, and access to her work calendar." Lucas immediately noted the difference between Sophie's evident distress and the more contained reactions of Ryan and Margaret. "Thank you, Sophie. How long have you worked for Evelyn?" "Almost 3 years now." Sophie handed him a meticulously organized folder. "I can't believe no one knows where she is. Evelyn is the most organized, structured person I know. She would never just disappear without telling someone." Emily sat beside Sophie. "We understand she's been acting differently lately. Can you elaborate on that?" Sophie glanced nervously at Ryan, who was examining a bookshelf with too much interest to be genuine. "Ryan, would you mind if we speak with Sophie alone?" Lucas asked. A flash of something, annoyance perhaps, crossed Ryan's face before he nodded. "Of course. I'll be in the library if you need anything else." Once he'd left, Sophie's posture relaxed slightly. "Evelyn has been secretive recently, taking calls in private, which she never used to do. I'd find her clearing her browser history, which seemed odd since she's usually so meticulous about keeping records." "When did this behavior start?" Lucas asked. "About 6 weeks ago, after she attended a board meeting about the new development project near the river. She came back, different, distracted, on edge." Sophie twisted her hands in her lap. "Then she started making these mysterious appointments that weren't in her regular calendar. When I asked, she said they were personal matters." "Did she ever mention being afraid of anyone? Receiving threats?" Emily probed. Sophie shook her head. "Not directly, but—" She hesitated. "Last week, I overheard her on the phone. She said something like, 'I need to be absolutely certain before I move forward. The implications are too serious.' When she saw me, she hung up immediately." Lucas surveyed the study. "This is where she works from home?" "Yes, she spends more time here than in her bedroom. Everything important would be here or in her private office at Russell Enterprises." Lucas noticed a sleek laptop on the desk. "Is this her computer?" "One of them. She has another she's been using more frequently lately. It wasn't here when I checked yesterday." Emily opened the folder Sophie had prepared. The charity gala was her last public appearance. What was on her schedule for the next day? The supposed Chicago trip? "That's the strange thing," Sophie said, moving to the desk and pulling up a digital calendar. "The Chicago trip was on her official schedule, but I never made the arrangements. Evelyn typically has me handle all her travel logistics, but she told me she'd take care of it herself this time. When I called the Chicago office after she didn't show up for a video conference, they said they weren't expecting her." Lucas and Emily exchanged glances. A fabricated business trip suggested premeditation, either by Evelyn herself or someone using it as cover for her disappearance. "Sophie, with your permission, we'd like to take her laptop for analysis, and we'll need access to her phone records, email accounts, anything that might give us insight into her recent activities." Sophie nodded. "Of course, anything that helps find her. I've written down all her passwords I'm aware of, though I suspect there may be accounts I don't know about, given her recent behavior." "Before we wrap up, we'd like to see Evelyn's personal quarters," Lucas said, turning to Sophie. Sophie nodded. "Of course, her bedroom and private sitting room are upstairs. I can show you." They followed Sophie up a sweeping staircase to the second-floor east wing of the mansion. The hallway was lined with tasteful artwork, mostly landscapes and abstract pieces that Emily noticed were signed by emerging environmental artists. "Evelyn collects works from artists who focus on environmental themes," Sophie explained, catching Emily's interest. "She believes in supporting those who share her vision." She opened a set of double doors to reveal a spacious suite that struck an interesting balance between luxury and practicality. The sitting room featured comfortable but elegant furniture, bookshelves filled with environmental texts and business journals, and a small workspace in the corner. "This is where she retreats when she wants privacy," Sophie said. "Her bedroom is through there." Lucas noted the contrast between the formal, almost museum-like quality of the mansion's main areas and the more lived-in feel of Evelyn's personal space. Her bedroom was similarly appointed, luxurious but functional, with a large bed, a reading nook by the window, and a walk-in closet partially visible through an open door. Emily examined the bookshelves while Lucas surveyed the room. Lots of material on sustainable business practices, corporate governance. She paused, running her finger along a row of books. She carefully pulled out a volume titled Corporate Law and Liability. Behind it, she found a small lever that, when pulled, released a hidden compartment in the bookcase. "Lucas," she called. "Look at this." Inside the compartment was a manila folder filled with newspaper clippings, carefully preserved in plastic sleeves. Emily removed them gently, spreading them on Evelyn's desk. Financial scandal. Hammond Industries collapse. Fraud charges filed against CEO Victor Hammond. Emily read the headlines aloud. These are all from 15 years ago. Lucas examined one of the articles, which featured a photograph of a handcuffed man being led from a courthouse. Victor Hammond, former CEO of Hammond Industries, was sentenced to 15 years for investor fraud today. His business partner, William Russell, whose testimony was instrumental in securing the conviction, expressed deep personal regret at the outcome. Sophie's face had gone pale. "I had no idea she was researching this. She never mentioned anyone named Hammond to me." Lucas continued reading through the clippings. According to this, after Hammond's conviction, Russell Enterprises purchased Hammond's assets at a fraction of their value. Russell's testimony portrayed Hammond as the mastermind behind the fraud, while positioning himself as an unwitting partner. "That seems convenient," Emily remarked, carefully photographing each document. As they were preparing to leave, the study door opened, and William Russell entered. He looked more haggard than he had in Lucas's office. "Have you found anything useful?" he asked without preamble, then froze as he caught sight of the newspaper clippings spread across Evelyn's desk. "We're still gathering information," Lucas began. "Mr. Russell," he said, watching William's reaction carefully. "We need to ask about Evelyn's role in the company. Would her work have made her enemies? Anyone who might wish her harm?" William's attention snapped back to Lucas, his expression tightening. "Evelyn is spearheading a major shift in our corporate environmental policy. It's controversial among some board members and certainly among our competitors, but corporate rivalry rarely escalates to—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "What about her environmental activism? Any confrontations there?" Emily asked, gathering the clippings and placing them back into the folder. "She's been vocal about opposing the waterfront development project. Some powerful interests stand to lose millions if the environmental impact assessment she commissioned leads to additional regulations." William's eyes kept darting to the folder in Emily's hands. "But surely you don't think this is related to her work?" Lucas kept his expression neutral. "We're exploring all possibilities, Mr. Russell. In cases like this, it's often the unexpected connection that provides the breakthrough." William nodded absently, his gaze drifting to a framed photo of a younger Evelyn on the desk. "She's all I have, Detective. Whatever you have to do, whatever resources you need, just find her." Lucas gathered the files they'd collected and thanked Sophie for her assistance. William walked them to their car. "One last question," Lucas said as they reached the vehicle. "Does Evelyn know about your business history, specifically your relationship with Victor Hammond?" William froze, his expression carefully masked. "My business history is a matter of public record, Detective. Evelyn has always been educated about the company she'll someday lead." His tone was measured, defensive. "Why do you ask?" "Just establishing a complete picture," Lucas replied smoothly. "Sometimes disappearances have roots in the past." William's jaw tightened. "Focus on the present, Detective. Whatever theories you're developing about ancient history won't help find my daughter." Lucas didn't respond, just nodded before he and Emily got into the car. As they drove away from the estate, Emily shook her head. "That family is a case study in dysfunction, masquerading as high society. And everyone's hiding something," Lucas added. "Ryan's concern feels rehearsed, Margaret barely pretends to care, and William gets defensive at the mention of Hammond. Only Sophie seems genuinely worried about Evelyn." Chapter 2. Back at the Ravenswood Police Department, Lucas spread the evidence across the table in the conference room, while Emily pinned photos of Evelyn Russell to the investigation board. He held up the folder of newspaper clippings about Victor Hammond. Why would Evelyn be researching a 15-year-old financial scandal involving her father? Before Emily could respond, a sharp knock at the door interrupted them. Reed Turner, the department's tech expert, leaned against the doorframe, his perpetual 5 o'clock shadow making him look more disheveled than usual. "You wanted me to look at a laptop?" he asked, tapping the screen of his tablet. At 29, Reed was the youngest specialist in the department, but his skills had proven invaluable since Lucas had recruited him following a hacking incident 3 years ago. "Evelyn Russell's," Lucas confirmed, handing him the sleek device they'd taken from the mansion. "Her assistant gave us the passwords she knows, but we suspect there might be more." Reed whistled. "William Russell's daughter?" No pressure or anything. He settled into the chair across from Lucas's desk and cracked his knuckles. "Give me a few hours. I'll see what she's been up to. Focus especially on anything related to Victor Hammond or Hammond Industries," Emily instructed. "And check her recent communications as well." Reed nodded without looking up. Reed already absorbed in his work. Lucas turned to Emily. "While Reed does his magic, let's dig deeper into Hammond. If Evelyn was researching him, we need to know why." 3 hours later, Reed let out a whistle. "You're going to want to see this," he said, his usual sarcastic demeanor replaced with genuine excitement. Evelyn Russell wasn't just researching Hammond. She was visiting him. Lucas straightened. "What?" Reed turned the laptop around to face them, showing a prison visitor log. "She made 3 visits to Ravenswood State Prison in the past month, signed in using the name Eve Carson, her mother's maiden name according to the background check I ran." "She was hiding her identity," Emily noted. "She didn't want anyone knowing she was meeting with Hammond." "It gets better," Reed continued, swiping to another screen. "Hammond was released on parole just 1 week before Evelyn disappeared, after serving 15 years of a 20-year sentence for investment fraud." Lucas leaned over the tablet, examining the release documents. "The timing can't be coincidental. Did you find any communications between them after his release?" "Nothing on her laptop or in her email," Reed admitted, "but she had been searching properties connected to Hammond Industries. Specifically, this address." He pulled up a map showing an industrial area along the Raven River. It was Hammond's flagship manufacturing facility before his company collapsed. Now it's abandoned. "What else did you find?" Lucas asked, making notes. Her browser history shows searches for evidence of corporate frame-up and statute of limitations on securities fraud. Plus, she downloaded dozens of archived news articles about the Hammond case. Reed hesitated. "And there's this." He pulled up an email draft that had never been sent. It was addressed to William Russell with the subject line, "What I've discovered." The draft contained only one line, "Dad, I know what really happened with Hammond." Emily and Lucas exchanged looks. "We need to talk to William Russell again," Lucas said. William Russell was in his study when they arrived, poring over financial reports that he hastily set aside when the housekeeper announced them. "Detective Sinclair, Officer Carter, I hope you have news." "We've uncovered some information we need to discuss," Lucas said, declining the offered seat. "Mr. Russell, were you aware that your daughter has been visiting Victor Hammond in prison?" The effect was immediate. William's face paled, and he gripped the edge of his desk. That's not possible. Why would Evelyn have any contact with that man?" "That's what we're trying to determine," Emily replied, studying his reaction. "She visited him 3 times in the past month, using her mother's maiden name to disguise her identity." William sank into his chair, visibly shaken. "I had no idea." "Hammond was released on parole 1 week before Evelyn disappeared," Lucas continued. "Given the timing and the research we found in Evelyn's possession, we need you to be completely honest about your history with Hammond." William's jaw tightened. "I've told you, it's public record. Victor was my business partner. We built Russell Hammond Enterprises together. When irregularities were discovered in the company's financials, I cooperated with investigators. The evidence pointed to Hammond's guilt." "And you testified against him," Emily added. "Yes, my testimony helped convict him." William's voice was strained. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Victor and I had been like brothers. After his conviction, Russell Enterprises purchased Hammond's assets at a fraction of their value, Lucas noted. Quite beneficial for you. William's eyes flashed. Are you implying something, detective? I'm stating facts, Mr. Russell. Hammond lost everything while your company flourished. Lucas leaned forward. Now your daughter has been secretly meeting with him, researching the case, and she disappears just as he's released. I don't believe in coincidences. Neither do I. William admitted after a long pause. But what you're suggesting, that Hammond would harm Evelyn to get back at me. We're not suggesting anything yet, Emily interjected. But we need to know if there's any reason Hammond would want revenge against you or your family. William stared out the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass. Victor lost 15 years of his life, his reputation, his fortune. His wife died while he was incarcerated. If he believes I betrayed him... He couldn't finish the sentence. Do you have any idea where Hammond might be staying since his release? Lucas asked. No, William shook his head. But his old estate is still standing, though it's fallen into disrepair. The bank could never sell it after the scandal. It's in Oak Ridge off Westfield Road. Lucas made a note. We'll need everything you have on Hammond, personal history, known associates, properties he might have access to. My assistant will provide whatever you need, William said, his voice hollow. Detective, if Hammond has Evelyn, what would he want? Lucas studied the man before him. That depends on what really happened 15 years ago, Mr. Russell, and whether your daughter discovered something you'd prefer stayed buried. Before William could respond, the study door opened, and Ryan Caldwell entered. He faltered when he saw Lucas and Emily. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had company, he said to William. It's fine, Ryan. The detectives were just leaving. William stood, signaling the end of the conversation. Lucas handed William his card. Call if you think of anything else that might help us locate your daughter or Hammond. As they were walking to the door, Ryan followed them. Detective, could I have a word? In private? Lucas nodded, and they stepped onto the terrace overlooking the manicured gardens. What is it, Mr. Caldwell? Lucas asked once they were alone. Ryan glanced back toward the house. I overheard your conversation with William about Hammond and Evelyn's visits to the prison. And, Emily prompted. I knew about her interest in Hammond, Ryan admitted. Not about the prison visits, but I'd seen her researching the case. When I asked her about it, she said it was just academic curiosity about the company's history. You didn't mention this earlier, Lucas noted, his voice neutral. Ryan ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, the first genuinely unguarded gesture Lucas had seen from him. Evelyn's been different lately. Secretive, even with me. I thought she was just stressed about work, but now... He hesitated. I'm worried she might have gotten involved in something dangerous. Like what? Emily asked. I don't know exactly, but about a month ago, she started asking questions about corporate liability laws, statute of limitations on fraud. Then she got cryptic phone calls she'd take in private. Ryan lowered his voice. I heard her tell someone once that she needed more proof before going public. I asked her about it, but she brushed me off, said it was related to an environmental impact case. Lucas studied Ryan's face, looking for signs of deception. Why tell us this now, Mr. Caldwell? Because I'm scared for her, Ryan replied. If Hammond has her... Now, if this is about whatever she was investigating, I just want her back safely. Whatever it takes. We'll be in touch, Lucas said. In the meantime, if you remember anything else about what Evelyn was working on, call me immediately. Back in the car, Emily frowned. What do you think? Was Caldwell being straight with us? Hard to say, Lucas replied, starting the engine. He's either genuinely concerned about Evelyn or trying to distance himself from whatever's going on. Let's see what Reed found on her phone records. Reed met them in the tech lab. His workspace a chaotic array of monitors and equipment that somehow made sense to him. Got the cell tower data from Evelyn's phone, he announced without looking up. Last signal pinged here. He pointed to a blinking dot on a digital map. The old Hammond manufacturing complex, Lucas noted. She went there the night she disappeared. And her phone hasn't been active since 10:42 p.m. that night, Reed added. Either it's dead, destroyed, or somewhere without signal. That gives us a location to start, Emily said. What about Hammond? Any leads on where he might be? Reed swiveled in his chair. Nothing concrete, but I did find something interesting in Evelyn's email. She had an appointment scheduled at 11 p.m. on the night she disappeared. The calendar entry just says H, warehouse meeting. Lucas checked his watch. That's our best lead. Let's get over there. Chain-link fencing surrounded the abandoned Hammond Industries complex, though numerous gaps showed where trespassers had gained entry over the years. Lucas and Emily approached cautiously, flashlights sweeping across the weed-choked parking lot. The concrete was cracked, with saplings already taking root in the fissures. There, Emily pointed to a sleek black Audi parked behind a section of collapsed wall, partially hidden from the street. That's got to be Evelyn's car. They approached the vehicle, guns drawn. The car was empty, the driver's door unlocked. Evelyn's designer purse still sat on the passenger seat, her wallet and phone nowhere to be found. She didn't walk away willingly, Lucas observed, noting scuff marks on the ground nearby. Let's check the perimeter. They split up, searching the exterior of the complex. Emily found a security camera installed by a neighboring business on a utility pole at the edge of the property. Lucas, she called. Over here. Within an hour, they had retrieved the security footage from the business owner and were reviewing it. The grainy black and white video showed Evelyn's Audi pulling into the lot at 10:38 p.m. She waited in her car for several minutes before a second vehicle arrived, a nondescript dark sedan. A tall figure emerged from the sedan, approaching Evelyn's car. She stepped out to meet him, their conversation occurring just out of the camera's range. Then, suddenly, the man grabbed Evelyn's arm. She struggled, but he forced her toward his vehicle. Within moments, both cars disappeared from view, the sedan with Evelyn inside, followed by her Audi being driven by someone else. She was abducted, Emily said grimly, but we couldn't see the driver's face or the license plate. Have Reed enhance the footage, Lucas instructed, and get CSU out here to process Evelyn's car. Chapter 3. As dawn broke over Ravenswood, Lucas and Emily made their way back to the police station, the fluorescent lights inside casting harsh shadows across their tired faces. The conference room had been transformed into a command center for the Russell case, with photos, timelines, and evidence covering every available surface. Reed Turner hunched over his laptop as he worked on enhancing the surveillance footage from the warehouse. His usual sarcastic demeanor was replaced by intense focus, his brow furrowed in concentration. Anything? Lucas asked, setting a fresh cup of coffee beside Reed. Reed shook his head, not looking up from the screen. The resolution is garbage. I've tried every enhancement trick I know, but the face is still too blurry for facial recognition, and the license plate is completely obscured. Emily leaned over his shoulder. What about the car model? Mid-2000s sedan, probably a Toyota or Honda. Dark color, maybe navy or black. Reed rubbed his eyes, generic as they come. Lucas paced the length of the room, his mind racing. What about Hammond? What do we know about him? Reed swiveled in his chair and pulled up a different window on his screen. Victor Hammond, age 65, co-founder of Russell Hammond Enterprises in 1990 with William Russell. They were college roommates at Ravenswood University. College roommates? Emily raised an eyebrow. So this betrayal goes back decades. Reed nodded. The company was on track for a major public offering in 2010. Projections showed it would have valued the company at over $2 billion. Then the fraud allegations hit. He pulled up scanned newspaper headlines, showing Hammond being led away in handcuffs, his face a mask of disbelief and betrayal. The prosecution claimed Hammond had been cooking the books for years, inflating profits and hiding losses. William Russell testified that he had discovered the discrepancies and immediately reported them to authorities. Reed tapped his keyboard, bringing up more documents. Hammond maintained his innocence throughout the trial, claiming Russell had framed him, but the evidence was overwhelming. Evidence that could have been manufactured, Lucas mused. After Hammond's conviction, Russell Hammond Enterprises was renamed to Russell Enterprises. The stock took a temporary hit but rebounded within months. Russell then purchased Hammond's assets at bankruptcy auction for pennies on the dollar. Reed looked up from his screen. Hammond lost everything: his company, his reputation, his freedom. His wife, Caroline, died of cancer 2 years into his sentence. Emily studied the financial records. And William Russell's wealth multiplied exponentially in the years that followed. What about Hammond's known associates? Anyone who might be helping him now? Lucas asked. Reed shook his head. Most of his business contacts distanced themselves after the conviction. His legal team abandoned him when he ran out of money for appeals. Lucas tapped his pen against the table, thinking, the old Hammond estate, let's check it out. Even if he's not staying there, he might have left something behind. Emily nodded. I'll drive. The Hammond estate sat at the end of a winding driveway in Oak Ridge, once Ravenswood's most prestigious neighborhood, before Hillcrest took the title. Unlike the meticulously maintained properties around it, the Hammond mansion showed clear signs of neglect: overgrown gardens, cracked windows, and peeling paint. 15 years of abandonment takes its toll, Emily remarked as they approached the front door, which hung slightly ajar. Lucas drew his weapon. Stay alert. If Hammond's been here recently, he could still be around. They entered cautiously, sweeping each room with practiced efficiency. The interior was a strange time capsule: expensive furniture draped in dust sheets, crystal chandeliers dulled by years of grime, and family photos still hanging on the walls. Lucas, Emily called from what appeared to be a home office. You need to see this. The office walls had been transformed into an investigation board that rivaled their own at the precinct. Newspaper clippings, financial records, and photos of William Russell covered every inch of space, connected by red string and annotated with meticulous notes in cramped handwriting. Hammond's been building a case, Lucas observed, examining the documents. Financial statements with highlighted discrepancies, witness testimonies that were ignored during the trial, bank transfers from offshore accounts. Emily pointed to a cluster of photos in the center. Look at these. William Russell meeting with the lead prosecutor weeks before Hammond's arrest. Russell with the judge at a charity gala. Russell with a key witness at a private dinner. Lucas carefully photographed each section of the wall. Hammond wasn't just obsessing, he was gathering evidence. If even half of this is legitimate, William Russell orchestrated a massive frame-up. And Evelyn discovered it, Emily added, pointing to a recent photo of Evelyn leaving the prison after one of her visits with Hammond. A noise from outside caught their attention. Lucas moved to the window in time to see an elderly woman peering curiously from the neighboring property. Let's talk to the neighbors, he suggested. See if anyone spotted Hammond. The woman, who introduced herself as Mrs. Donnelly, had lived next door for over 30 years. Such a tragedy. What happened to Victor, she said, inviting them onto her porch. He was always such a kind man. Caroline and I were in the same garden club. Have you seen anyone at the house recently? Lucas asked. Mrs. Donnelly nodded. A man has been coming and going for about a week now. I assumed it was a relative, or perhaps someone from the bank. Can you describe him? Emily pressed. Tall, distinguished-looking despite the circumstances. Gray hair, thin. He looked like Victor, but older, of course. Prison ages a person terribly. She shook her head sadly. When did you last see him? Lucas asked. 2 days ago, early morning. He left with a briefcase and hasn't returned. Mrs. Donnelly hesitated. Is Victor in trouble again? He's suffered enough, detective. Lucas gave a non-committal response and thanked her for her time. As they walked back to their car, his phone rang. It was Reed saying he found something. Back at the tech lab, Reed was practically vibrating with nervous energy. Hammond didn't just lose his company and his wife, he said without preamble. He lost his daughter too. He pulled up court records on his screen. Hammond had a teenage daughter, Olivia, who was 15 when he was convicted. After Caroline died, the girl became a ward of the state temporarily, but then was legally adopted and changed her name. Lucas leaned closer. Who adopted her? Reed looked up, his expression grim. Court records are sealed because she was a minor, but I managed to trace the timeline. Olivia Hammond disappeared from records in 2012. That same year, Margaret Walsh appeared in William Russell's life. Emily's eyes widened. Are you suggesting Margaret Walsh is Victor Hammond's daughter? The ages match, Reed confirmed. And look at this photo from Hammond's house before the arrest. He pulled up an old family photo showing Hammond with his wife and teenage daughter, a girl with striking features that, despite the years between, bore a remarkable resemblance to Margaret Walsh. "That can't be a coincidence," Lucas said. "Margaret must have known William was responsible for her father's downfall. Why would she marry him?" "Revenge served cold?" Emily suggested. "Or maybe Stockholm Syndrome." Russell was the most powerful man in Ravenswood after Hammond's fall. Lucas checked his watch. "Let's pay Margaret a visit. She must know more than she's telling us." They found Margaret alone in William's private study, a room at the heart of the mansion that Emily had noted was conspicuously absent from their initial tour. Surrounded by dark wood paneling and leather-bound books, Margaret sat at William's massive desk, sorting through papers with practiced efficiency. She looked up when they entered, her perfect composure faltering only briefly before the mask slipped back into place. "Detective Sinclair, Officer Carter, William isn't here at the moment." "That's all right, Mrs. Russell," Lucas said, deliberately using her married name. "Or would you prefer Mrs. Walsh, or perhaps even Mrs. Hammond?" The color drained from Margaret's face. She set down the papers with trembling hands, then visibly steeled herself. "Close the door," she said quietly. Lucas complied, then took a seat across from her without waiting for an invitation. Emily remained standing, positioned near the door. "How much do you know?" Margaret asked, her voice steady despite her pallor. "We know you're Victor Hammond's daughter," Lucas replied. "What we don't know is why you married the man who destroyed your father's life." Margaret's laugh was hollow, entirely devoid of humor. "It's quite a story, Detective. After my mother died and my father went to prison, I was alone and vulnerable. William expressed concern for my welfare. He arranged my adoption by a family friend, provided for my education, kept tabs on me." "He groomed you," Emily said flatly. "That's one way to put it." Margaret's fingers played with a pen on the desk. "By the time I was 20, I had a new identity and a position at Russell Enterprises as William's executive assistant. He didn't recognize me. I'd changed considerably from the awkward teenager he'd met at company functions." "When did he figure it out?" Lucas asked. 3 years later, when he proposed." A bitter smile crossed Margaret's face. "I thought I'd been so clever, working my way into his confidence, gathering evidence to clear my father's name. But William knew all along. He showed me evidence that could send me to prison for corporate espionage. Then he offered marriage instead of prosecution." Emily's expression hardened. "He blackmailed you into marriage?" "It was a business arrangement," Margaret corrected. "He needed a wife who understood discretion and would maintain his social standing. I needed protection and a position that would eventually allow me to help my father." "Did William frame your father?" Lucas asked bluntly. Margaret met his gaze steadily. "Yes. I witnessed it firsthand as his assistant. William systematically altered records, manipulated witnesses, and fabricated evidence. My father was innocent of everything except trusting his business partner too much." "And Evelyn? Did she discover the truth?" Emily asked. "Evelyn has always been too clever for her own good," Margaret replied. "She found old company documents in the archives, discrepancies that didn't match the official record. When she started asking questions, I tried to divert her, but she's persistent." Lucas leaned forward. "Is that why she visited your father in prison? To get his side of the story?" Margaret nodded. "I warned her it was dangerous, but she was determined to uncover the truth. She said it was about justice, about making things right." "Do you know where she is now?" Lucas pressed. Before Margaret could answer, the study door flew open. William Russell stood in the doorway, his face contorted with fury. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, stalking into the room. "Why are you interrogating my wife in my private study?" "William," Margaret said, her voice suddenly small, "they know about my father, about what you did." William froze mid-stride, his anger giving way to something closer to defeat. He sank into a nearby chair, suddenly looking every one of his years. "How much have you told them?" he asked Margaret. "Everything," she replied. "It's over, William. The truth was always going to come out eventually." William rubbed his face with his hands. When he looked up, the powerful businessman was gone, replaced by a haunted man consumed by old sins. "I did it," he admitted quietly. "I framed Victor. We were on the verge of going public, but he wanted to delay, said our numbers weren't as strong as they appeared. He was right. I'd been making risky investments, covering losses. If we delayed, everything would have fallen apart. So you made him the scapegoat, Lucas said. William nodded. It was supposed to be a moderate sentence, a year or two at most, but the judge was harsher than expected. Then Caroline died and everything spiraled out of control. And now Hammond has Evelyn, Emily stated. No, William shook his head vehemently. Victor wouldn't harm her. He's many things, but not violent. Besides, he's too smart to throw away his freedom after just getting it back. Then who has her? Lucas demanded. William opened his mouth to respond when his phone chimed with an incoming message. He pulled it out, his expression changing to horror as he stared at the screen. "Oh God," he whispered, turning the phone so Lucas and Emily could see. The screen showed a photo of Evelyn, bound to a chair in what appeared to be an industrial space. She was unharmed, but clearly frightened. The text beneath read, "William, you have 24 hours to confess publicly to what you did, or your daughter pays for your crimes. The innocent shouldn't suffer for the guilty." Chapter 4. The police station hummed with activity as Lucas stared at the photo of Evelyn Russell bound to a chair. The timestamp in the corner indicated it had been taken just 2 hours ago. William Russell sat nearby, his imposing frame now hunched with worry, all traces of the powerful businessman gone. "We need to set up a trace on that phone," Lucas said, handing the device to Reed. Reed nodded grimly. "On it. Though if they're using a burner, it won't give us much." Emily leaned against the conference table, her arms crossed. "What do we know about the location? Can we tell anything from the background?" Lucas studied the image again. Industrial setting. Concrete walls, metal fixtures. Could be anywhere in the old manufacturing district. William looked up, his face ashen. "What about that factory complex where you found Evelyn's car?" "Possible," Lucas conceded. "Hammond knows that area well." Chief Christine Watson entered the room, her expression severe as she assessed the situation. "Give me an update, Sinclair." Lucas briefed her quickly on their findings. Hammond's release from prison, Evelyn's secret visits, the evidence of William's fraud, and now the ransom demand for a public confession. "So Hammond's taking revenge," Watson concluded. "It appears that way," Lucas replied, though something about the situation still bothered him. The message didn't match what they'd learned about Hammond's character, a man who'd maintained his innocence for 15 years despite overwhelming odds. Reed returned, tablet in hand. "I've traced the signal to a cell tower near the old Hammond electronics factory. That narrows it down to about a 3-mile radius, and it's definitely a burner phone. Activated yesterday, no previous calls." William stood abruptly. "I'll do it, I'll confess. Whatever Hammond wants." "Mr. Russell?" Watson began. "No, my mind is made up." William's voice was firm despite his haggard appearance. "My reputation, my freedom, none of it matters compared to Evelyn's safety. I'll hold the press conference, admit everything." Lucas exchanged glances with Emily. "A public confession might buy us time, but we still need to locate Evelyn." "I can have tactical ready in 30 minutes, Watson said, "once we pinpoint her location." "And risk her life?" William interrupted. Hammond's message was clear: I confess or she suffers. The debate continued as Reed worked to narrow down the signal's origin. Various strategies were proposed and rejected. A fake confession to buy time, a tactical team standing by, negotiators attempting contact. "Wait," Reed said suddenly. "There's another text coming in." All eyes turned to William's phone as Reed had connected it to a larger monitor. The message appeared, addressed not to William but to Lucas. "I know you're tracing this. I want Russell to suffer as I did, but I'm not a monster. Come alone to the old Hammond electronics factory. Just you, Sinclair, no backup, or she dies. I want you to understand the truth before it all ends." "It's a trap," Watson said immediately. Lucas read the message again. Something about the wording nagged at him. "Maybe," he acknowledged, "but Hammond knows we're investigating. He could have run, but instead, he's reaching out. That suggests he wants something more than simple revenge." "You can't seriously be considering going alone," Emily protested. Lucas turned to her. "If I don't, and Hammond hurts Evelyn, we'll never forgive ourselves. We need to buy time while William prepares for the press conference." "This is against protocol, Sinclair," Watson warned. I know, but Hammond specifically asked for me. There's something he wants me to understand. Lucas checked his weapon. Set up the press conference for 2 hours from now. That gives me time to make contact and assess the situation. I'm coming with you, Emily insisted. Lucas shook his head. You heard the message. I need to go alone, but you can coordinate the backup team. Keep them at a distance, ready to move if things go wrong. Watson reluctantly approved the plan, and preparations began for both the meeting and William's press conference. As Lucas prepared to leave, William approached him. Detective, he said quietly, if Hammond does have Evelyn, tell him I'm sorry. For everything. Lucas noted the genuine remorse in the man's eyes. You can tell him yourself when this is over. The Hammond Electronics factory had once been the crown jewel of Hammond Industries, employing over 1,000 workers before its collapse. Now it was nothing more than a mere shadow of its former glory. Lucas approached cautiously, his car the only one visible in the crumbling parking lot. He wore a concealed wire, giving Emily and the backup team a way to monitor the situation without being seen. The main entrance was chained shut, but a side door stood slightly ajar. Lucas drew his weapon before entering, every sense on high alert as he stepped into the cavernous manufacturing floor. Machinery lay dormant under sheets of dust. Hammond? He called, his voice echoing. I'm here. Alone, like you asked. Silence answered him. Lucas moved deeper into the facility, navigating around abandoned assembly lines and storage racks. A sound to his left made him turn sharply, gun raised. That won't be necessary, Detective. Victor Hammond stepped into view, emerging from behind a partition. Prison had aged him beyond his 65 years, his tall frame now gaunt, his once dark hair silver white. But his eyes burned with the same intelligence and intensity evident in his old photographs. Where's Evelyn Russell? Lucas demanded, not lowering his weapon. Hammond gestured toward a corridor. She's safe. I give you my word. Forgive me if I don't find that reassuring, considering you're holding her hostage. A tired smile crossed Hammond's face. Is that what you think is happening here, Detective? That I kidnapped William's daughter for revenge? The evidence suggests it. Hammond shook his head. The evidence can be misleading. Isn't that the lesson of my own case? He moved slowly, hands visible, toward a makeshift office area set up in what had once been a supervisor's station. Maps and documents covered a table alongside monitoring equipment and several laptops. I didn't take Evelyn, Hammond said quietly. I saved her. Lucas kept his distance, weapon still ready. Explain. 6 weeks ago, Evelyn contacted me in prison. Baffed, she'd found discrepancies in old company records, inconsistencies that suggested her father had manipulated evidence in my case. Hammond gestured to the documents on the table. At first, I thought it was some cruel trick. Why would William Russell's daughter try to help the man her father destroyed? And she came back 3 times, brought more evidence each visit. She was determined to uncover the truth regardless of the consequences for her father. Hammond's voice held a note of admiration. I was paroled a week ago. We arranged to meet here to review everything she'd gathered before going public. Lucas finally lowered his gun slightly. So what went wrong? Someone else discovered what she was doing. The night we met, a car followed her here. Armed men? They tried to grab her in the parking lot. Hammond's expression hardened. I intervened, made it look like I had taken her, to throw them off our trail while we gathered the final evidence we needed. You expect me to believe this story without proof? No, Detective. I expect you to see the proof for yourself. Hammond turned toward the corridor. Evelyn, you can come out now. He's alone. A door opened, and Evelyn Russell emerged. Unlike in the photo, she wasn't bound or restrained in any way. She looked tired and tense, but otherwise unharmed. Her eyes, so like her father's, assessed Lucas carefully. Detective Sinclair, she said, her voice steady. Thank you for coming. Lucas holstered his weapon, confusion evident on his face. Miss Russell, you're free to leave? I could have left any time, she replied, approaching the table. But I chose to stay hidden. Victor has been protecting me while we compiled the evidence. Lucas studied her closely for signs of coercion or Stockholm Syndrome, but found none. Her movements were confident, her gaze clear and determined. The photo sent to your father. A necessary deception, she explained without apology. We needed to force his hand. A public confession is the only way to ensure the truth comes out completely. Hammond gestured to the documents spread across the table. Evelyn has gathered compelling evidence that William not only framed me 15 years ago, but has continued similar financial manipulations since. Take a look. Lucas hesitated, then moved closer to examine the papers. Financial records, email printouts, and court documents were arranged in chronological order, telling a damning story of deliberate fraud and deception. I discovered it by accident, Evelyn explained, pointing to a specific file. I was researching our company history for a sustainability project when I found discrepancies in the archived records. The more I dug, the worse it got. She showed Lucas evidence that William had falsified financial reports, manipulated witnesses, and even bribed officials involved in Hammond's case. More disturbing were the recent documents showing similar patterns continuing under William's leadership at Russell Enterprises. He didn't just destroy Victor, Evelyn continued, her voice tight with controlled emotion. He's been engaging in the same practices for years, manipulating environmental impact reports, bribing inspectors, hiding losses. Why not take this directly to the authorities? Lucas asked. Because the corruption goes deeper than my father, she replied. Look at this. She pulled out documents showing connections between Russell Enterprises and several high-ranking city officials, including financial contributions to Mayor Matthews's campaigns that coincided with favorable rulings on development projects. We needed irrefutable evidence before going public, Hammond explained. Otherwise, it would be dismissed as the vendetta of an ex-con and a naive daughter. Lucas took in the scope of their investigation with growing unease. If even half of what they claimed was true, the implications reached far beyond a 15-year-old fraud case. What about the kidnappers? He asked. You said someone tried to grab Evelyn. Who? Before either could answer, an alarm sounded from one of the laptops. Hammond moved quickly to check the security feed displayed on the screen. Multiple vehicles were approaching the factory from the south entrance. They've found us, he said grimly, activating something on the computer. Throughout the building, metal security doors began to close, sectioning off different areas of the factory. Who's found you? Lucas demanded, drawing his weapon again. Evelyn moved to another monitor, her expression tightening. That's Ryan's security team. Your fiancé? Ex-fiancé, she corrected bitterly. When I started investigating my father, I made the mistake of confiding in Ryan. He seemed supportive at first, but then I discovered he had more to lose than anyone if my father was exposed. What do you mean? Hammond brought up financial records on the screen. Ryan Caldwell's security firm is deeply in debt. He's been leveraging his future connection to the Russell fortune to secure loans and investors. If William goes down, so does Ryan's financial house of cards. The security feed showed armed men in tactical gear exiting the vehicles, moving with professional precision to surround the building. Those aren't police, Lucas observed. No, Hammond confirmed. Private security contractors. Ryan's firm specializes in executive protection and asset recovery. I recognized his methods when they tried to grab Evelyn at our first meeting. Lucas activated his concealed wire. Emily, we have a situation. Multiple armed personnel surrounding the Hammond factory. They appear to be private security, not police. Evelyn is here, unharmed. Hammond claims he's been protecting her from these people. There was no response, only static. They're jamming communications, Hammond explained, moving quickly through the factory. I built this place with contingencies in mind. There's a secure exit through the underground maintenance tunnels. We need to move now. Lucas followed, keeping Evelyn between himself and Hammond. Lead the way. Hammond guided them through a maze of corridors and production floors, using his security system to seal doors behind them. These sections can be locked down independently. It should slow them down. They descended a stairwell to a lower level that housed massive electrical equipment and maintenance facilities. The air was cooler here, heavy with the scent of old machine oil and damp concrete. The tunnel entrance is through the backup generator room, Hammond explained, his breath coming in short bursts from the exertion. It leads to an emergency exit half a mile from here. As they made their way through the basement, the sound of a door being forced open echoed from somewhere above. Hammond quickened their pace, leading them through an equipment room filled with massive circuit breakers and control panels. "Almost there," he assured them. A shot rang out from a connecting corridor, the bullet striking the wall inches from Hammond's head. He pushed Evelyn behind a control panel for cover as Lucas returned fire, forcing their attacker to retreat. "This way," Hammond urged, pointing to a narrow passage between two massive generators. Lucas covered their movement, firing twice more to keep the attackers at bay. As Evelyn made it through the passage, another shot echoed from a different direction. Hammond grunted in pain, clutching his shoulder as blood seeped between his fingers. "Victor?" Evelyn cried, moving to help him. "Keep going," Hammond ordered through gritted teeth. "The tunnel entrance is through that door. The code is 240910. More gunfire erupted, forcing them to separate and take cover on opposite sides of the room. Lucas found himself behind a heavy equipment cabinet, with Evelyn crouched 20 feet away behind a workbench. Hammond was pinned down behind the generators, blood staining his shirt. "Go!" Hammond shouted to Evelyn. "Get to the tunnel! I'll hold them here." Lucas fired again, providing cover as Evelyn hesitated, clearly torn between escaping and helping Hammond. "Evelyn, move!" Lucas ordered. "I'll get Hammond." She nodded finally, making a run for the door Hammond had indicated. As she disappeared through it, Lucas prepared to move to Hammond's position. Before he could, a new barrage of gunfire forced him back into cover. Then abruptly, the shooting stopped. In the sudden silence, a familiar voice echoed through the facility's PA system. "Hammond is dead," Ryan Caldwell announced, his voice eerily calm. "Sinclair, you're harboring a fugitive and interfering with a private security operation. Turn over Evelyn now, and we can all walk away from this." Lucas peered around the cabinet, trying to locate Hammond. The area where the older man had been taking cover was now obscured by smoke from a damaged electrical panel, and Lucas couldn't see whether Hammond was still alive. From his position, Lucas could see multiple armed men advancing through the room's main entrance, their weapons trained on his location. More concerning, he could hear movement from the direction Evelyn had fled, suggesting Ryan's men were already pursuing her through the tunnel system. Lucas was trapped between advancing forces, separated from both Hammond and Evelyn, with no way to communicate with his backup team. The factory's security system continued its automated lockdown, sections of the facility sealing themselves off in a pre-programmed pattern that might either trap them or provide their only chance of escape. Chapter 5. Lucas stared at the blood splatter where Hammond had been taking cover, his mind racing. Ryan's smug voice echoed through the PA system again. "Tick-tock, detective. You're outnumbered and outgunned. Hand over Evelyn, and this ends peacefully." Lucas assessed his situation quickly, then made his decision. He fired 3 rapid shots at the electrical panel near the entrance. Sparks showered down as the lights flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness broken only by emergency lights that cast everything in an eerie red glow. In the confusion, Lucas dashed toward Hammond's position, staying low. He found the older man slumped against the wall, blood soaking his shirt, but still conscious. "Can you move?" Lucas asked, checking the wound. Hammond gritted his teeth. "I think so." Lucas holstered his weapon and helped Hammond up, supporting his weight. Hammond pointed toward the corridor Evelyn had taken. "That way." They stumbled forward as shouts and flashlight beams cut through the darkness behind them. Lucas guided them through the door Evelyn had used minutes earlier, finding a narrow service corridor that led deeper into the facility's basement. "Seal it," Hammond gasped, nodding toward a keypad beside the door. Lucas punched in the code Hammond had mentioned earlier, and a heavy security door slid into place just as bullets pinged against the metal from the other side. "That won't hold them for long," Hammond warned, his voice weakening. "Ryan's people know this facility almost as well as I do." They continued down the corridor, Hammond growing heavier against Lucas's shoulder. Blood dripped onto the concrete floor, leaving a trail Lucas knew Ryan's men would follow. "Hammond, stay with me," Lucas urged. A distant explosion rocked the corridor, Ryan's men blasting through the sealed door. "We need to move faster," Lucas urged. Hammond pointed to a junction ahead. "Left. Leads to my old security office. Evelyn will be there, if she followed my instructions." They turned left, rushing through the maze-like maintenance tunnels. Hammond explained between labored breaths that he had built these escape routes into all his facilities. "How much farther?" Lucas asked, hearing footsteps echoing behind them. "Almost there," Hammond assured him. "The security office has a hidden server, contains everything. Evidence of William's original fraud, proof of Ryan's current schemes. Evelyn was downloading it all when you arrived." They reached a section where water had leaked through the ceiling, making the floor slick. Hammond's legs gave out, and he slid to the ground. "Leave me," he insisted. "Get to Evelyn. The server is what matters." Lucas shook his head. "Not happening." He tried contacting Emily again, still getting the sound of static. He wasn't sure if he was getting through or not. With a curse, he pulled Hammond up again, despite the older man's protest, and continued on through the tunnels. Outside the factory complex, Emily paced beside the tactical van, frustration evident in every movement. Chief Watson stood nearby, speaking with the tactical team leader. "His wire's been silent for 20 minutes, Emily insisted. "We should go in now." "Protocol says we wait for the signal," Watson reminded her. Emily's radio crackled with static, then a broken fragment of Lucas's voice came through. "Ambushed. Hammond wounded. Ryan Caldwell. Armed men." "That's your signal," Emily said, already reaching for her vest. "Lucas is in trouble." Watson hesitated only a moment before nodding to the tactical leader. "Move in." Back in the tunnels, Lucas and Hammond finally reached a reinforced door with a faded security sign. Hammond punched in a code, and the door swung open to reveal Evelyn bent over an ancient computer terminal, frantically downloading files to an external drive. "Victor." She rushed to help Lucas lower Hammond into a chair, her face paling at the sight of his blood-stained shirt. "I'm fine," Hammond assured her unconvincingly. "Did you get the files?" Evelyn nodded, returning to the computer. "Almost done. Everything's here. Dad's original fraud, Ryan's loans, the kickbacks from city contracts." "Slow down," Lucas interrupted, checking Hammond's wound with the first aid kit Evelyn had found. "What kickbacks?" "Ryan's not just leveraging Russell Enterprises," Evelyn explained, eyes fixed on the downloading progress bar. "He's been bribing city officials to approve development contracts that violate environmental regulations. The same projects I've been fighting against at Russell Enterprises." Hammond winced as Lucas applied pressure to his shoulder. "Ryan recorded everything. Thought it gave him leverage over William. I recorded Ryan making the offer." "Insurance policy." Lucas glanced at the security monitors showing views of various parts of the facility. Ryan's men were searching the tunnels, drawing closer to their location. "How many exits from this room?" Lucas asked. Hammond pointed to a narrow shaft in the corner. "Maintenance access leads outside, but we need time." He reached for the keyboard, typing a series of commands with his good hand. "Activating final security protocol, timed lockdown. 15 minutes until this room seals completely. We need to be gone before then." Evelyn removed the drive and tucked it into her pocket. "Got everything." Lucas moved to the door, drawing his weapon. "I'll hold them off as long as I can. You two get ready to move." Hammond struggled to his feet. "Detective, if something happens, make sure Margaret knows the truth. She deserves that much." Before Lucas could respond, the security monitors showed Ryan and two armed men approaching their position. Lucas took cover beside the door, weapon ready. The explosion when it came was deafening, the door blasting inward, filling the room with smoke and debris. Lucas fired twice at the first shadow through the doorway, forcing him back. Ryan's voice cut through the chaos. "Evelyn, this doesn't have to end badly. Just give me the drive." "It's over, Ryan," Lucas called back. "We know everything." Ryan's laugh was bitter. "No, it's not over. Not yet." He stepped into view, pistol raised, using one of his men as a shield. "My company's on the verge of bankruptcy, detective. Everything I've built is tied to Russell Enterprises. I've leveraged my future on those contracts." "So you decided to frame Hammond for Evelyn's kidnapping?" Lucas kept his gun trained on Ryan's position. "It was brilliant, really," Ryan admitted, eyes scanning the room for Evelyn. "Hammond gets blamed for her disappearance and murder. William destroys himself with grief. I step in to stabilize Russell Enterprises as the grieving fiancé. Everything would have been perfect." "Except Evelyn wasn't part of your plan," Lucas observed. Ryan's expression hardened. "She should have stayed out of it. playing amateur detective, digging through old company records. What did she think would happen? His attention shifted to Hammond, who struggled to remain standing beside the computer terminal. And you, I offered you a deal. Clear your name in exchange for your silence. It would have been so simple. Hammond's voice was weak but steady. I spent 15 years in prison because of a lie. I wasn't about to let another one define the rest of my life. Ryan signaled to his men, "Destroy the server, all of it." One of the men moved toward the computer equipment, but Evelyn stepped into his path. "Touch it, and I'll make sure every news outlet in the country gets copies of what's on this drive." Ryan's face contorted with fury. "You don't understand what's at stake." "I understand perfectly," Evelyn replied. "My father betrayed his partner for money. You betrayed me for the same reason. The only difference is that I'm not letting you get away with it." Ryan raised his gun toward Hammond. "If I can't have the evidence, I'll at least make sure there's no one left to testify." Lucas tensed, preparing to launch himself toward Ryan. When distant sirens cut through the tension, Ryan's head snapped toward the sound. "Police!" Emily's voice echoed through the tunnels. "Drop your weapons." Ryan's momentary distraction was all Lucas needed. He lunged forward, tackling Ryan to the ground. The gun discharged, the bullet embedding itself in the ceiling as they struggled. Ryan was younger, but Lucas had the advantage of training on his side. "It's over," Lucas grunted, pinning Ryan to the floor. Ryan's men, hearing the approaching police, dropped their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. Lucas secured Ryan's wrists with zip ties just as Emily burst into the room, weapon drawn, followed by the tactical team. "Perfect timing," Lucas remarked, pulling Ryan to his feet. Emily surveyed her partner, breathing a sigh of relief that he was uninjured. "You look terrible." "Thanks," Lucas chuckled, then nodded toward Hammond, who had slumped back into the chair, his face alarmingly pale. "He needs medical attention. Gunshot wound to the shoulder, significant blood loss." As paramedics rushed in to attend to Hammond, Emily took the drive from Evelyn. "I'm guessing this is important?" "It's everything," Evelyn confirmed. "Proof of my father's fraud, Ryan's corruption, the bribes to city officials, all of it." Emily nodded before placing the drive into an evidence bag. 2 hours later, the abandoned factory was alive with activity. Police securing the scene, forensics collecting evidence, media vans assembling at the perimeter. Lucas stood outside the ambulance where Hammond was being treated, watching as another vehicle approached. William Russell emerged, his face etched with worry. Emily had called him after securing the scene. His eyes found Evelyn first, relief washing over his features before his gaze shifted to Hammond on the stretcher. For a moment, the former partners stared at each other, 15 years of betrayal and pain between them. Then William approached slowly, as if walking toward his own execution. "Victor," he said, his voice barely audible. Hammond regarded him with weary eyes. "William." "Dad?" Evelyn stepped forward. "Ryan tried to kill us all. He was going to frame Victor for my murder." William's face crumpled. "My God, Evelyn, I never thought." "That your crimes would come back to haunt you?" Her voice was sharp. "That your actions have consequences?" William had no answer for that. With a sigh, he turned back to Hammond. "Victor, I can't undo what I did to you, but I swear I never wanted this. I never wanted anyone hurt." Hammond's laugh turned into a grimace of pain. "No one ever does, William. We just convince ourselves the consequences won't be severe. That's how we justify our actions." To everyone's surprise, William bowed his head before speaking loud enough for the eager reporters to hear. "I did it. All of it. I framed you, falsified the evidence, manipulated the witnesses. I destroyed your life for money and power, and I've regretted it every day since." Hammond studied him for a moment before responding. "Why tell me now? The evidence on that drive will convict you anyway." "Because Evelyn deserves to hear it from me," William said, looking up at his daughter with tears in his eyes. "And because you deserve to hear it too. I'm sorry, Victor. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make amends if you'll let me." Hammond's expression remained guarded. Decades of bitterness, not easily set aside. "This was never about money for me, William. It was about my name, my reputation, my daughter thinking her father was a criminal." "Margaret?" William asked, surprise evident in his voice. Hammond nodded weakly. "I wanted her to know the truth before I died. that her father wasn't the man everyone believed him to be. William nodded slowly. "I'll do whatever it takes to clear your name." "Some things can't be repaired," Hammond replied, his voice fading as the paramedics prepared to transport him. "But the truth is a start." As they loaded Hammond into the ambulance, Lucas joined Evelyn, who watched her father, her emotions too complex to name. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Justice," Lucas replied. "For Hammond, for you, for everyone hurt by the lies." Evelyn nodded, her gaze shifting to the evidence drive in Emily's hand. "Justice," she repeated. "After 15 years, it's about time." Chapter 6. Lucas paused in the doorway of Victor Hammond's hospital room, taking in the scene before him. Hammond lay propped up in bed, his shoulder heavily bandaged, connected to various monitors that beeped steadily. Hammond looked up, noticing Lucas in the doorway. "Detective Sinclair, I wondered if you'd come." Lucas approached the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been shot," Hammond replied with a ghost of a smile. "But the doctors say I'll recover just fine. Apparently, I'm too stubborn to die just yet." With a chuckle, Lucas settled into the chair beside the bed. "The evidence from your server is proving extensive. The DA is building quite a case against Ryan Caldwell." "And William?" Hammond asked, his voice carefully neutral. "He's cooperating fully, seems eager to confess to everything." Lucas studied Hammond's face. "I have to ask, was kidnapping Evelyn always part of your plan, or was that improvised when Ryan's men showed up?" Hammond sighed, adjusting himself with a wince. "The truth? When I first contacted Evelyn, my intentions weren't entirely pure. 15 years in prison gives a man plenty of time to nurture hatred. I saw William's daughter as a way to destroy him, just as he destroyed me." "What changed?" Hammond's gaze drifted to the window. "She did. I expected a spoiled heiress, perhaps even someone complicit in her father's corruption. Instead, I found a woman of remarkable integrity." He shook his head slightly. "She reminded me of my own daughter before." "Everything. Margaret," Lucas confirmed. "Yes." Hammond's voice softened. "When Evelyn realized what her father had done, she could have buried it, protected the family name, her inheritance. Instead, she was determined to expose the truth, regardless of the cost to herself or her father." Lucas nodded. "That kind of integrity is rare." "Especially in our circles," Hammond agreed. "The night at the factory, when Ryan's men tried to grab her, I acted on instinct. Making it look like I'd taken her was a split-second decision to buy us time." "A decision that nearly got you killed," Lucas pointed out. Hammond's laugh was short and bitter. 15 years of my life were already taken, detective. What's a bullet compared to that?" He shifted slightly, meeting Lucas's gaze directly. "The strangest part is that seeing William with Evelyn, the genuine fear in his eyes when he thought she was in danger, it made me realize something." "What's that?" "Revenge is a poor companion for 15 years. It keeps you alive but doesn't let you live." Hammond's expression turned reflective. "Seeing him ready to sacrifice everything for her, I remembered what it was to love someone more than yourself." A nurse appeared in the doorway, signaling that Hammond needed rest. Lucas stood. "For what it's worth, I think you showed more integrity in the past week than most people do in a lifetime." Hammond's eyes, tired but sharp, studied Lucas. "Justice comes in many forms, detective. Sometimes it's a prison sentence. Sometimes it's simply the truth finally being heard." At the Ravenswood Police Department, the conference room had been transformed into a war room. Emily organized evidence boxes while Reed worked frantically at his computer, processing the mountain of data from Hammond's server. Lucas entered, carrying coffee for the team. "How's it going?" Emily accepted a cup gratefully. "DHN has been in with William Russell for the past 2 hours. From what I hear, he's not holding anything back." Through the glass walls, Lucas could see William Russell sitting across from Catherine Chen, the district attorney's sleek black suit and perfect posture contrasting with William's rumpled appearance. The once imposing businessman looked diminished, gesturing earnestly as he spoke. "Has Chen said what kind of deal she's offering?" Lucas asked. Reed snorted. "Deal? The man committed massive fraud. He should be looking at decades in prison." The conference room door opened and Chen entered, her expression unreadable as always. At 49, she was a formidable presence, known for her razor-sharp mind and unwavering commitment to the law. "Detective Sinclair," she acknowledged. I understand we have you to thank for breaking this case wide open. Lucas shrugged. Hammond and Evelyn Russell did the heavy lifting. I just showed up at the right moment. Chen set her portfolio on the table. William Russell has provided a full confession regarding the original fraud case against Victor Hammond. The statute of limitations has expired on some charges, but not all. He's also offering substantial cooperation on the Ryan Caldwell matter. What kind of sentence is he looking at? Emily asked. That depends on the judge, Chen replied. He has asked for one consideration, though. Time to make amends to Hammond and his daughter before any sentencing. Lucas raised an eyebrow. And you're considering it? Chen's expression remained professional, but something in her eyes softened slightly. Russell's information could help us clean up substantial corruption in the city development projects. Sometimes justice requires flexibility. Reed spun his chair around. Speaking of corruption, you need to see this. He pulled up financial records on the large screen. Ryan Caldwell's security firm wasn't just in financial trouble. It was a front for laundering kickbacks from development contracts. Look at these transfers. The screen filled with transaction records, showing money flowing from various shell companies into Ryan's security firm, then out to numbered accounts belonging to 3 city council members. Those council members all sit on the zoning commission, Emily noted. The same commission that's been approving developments in protected environmental areas. Chen studied the screen intently. This gives us enough for search warrants on the council members. We could be looking at the biggest corruption scandal in Ravenswood's history. William knew about this? Lucas asked. Chen shook her head. According to his statement, he was aware Ryan was leveraging his connection to Russell Enterprises for loans, but not about the kickback scheme. Ryan was operating independently, using William's reputation as cover. And Evelyn stumbled onto it while investigating her father's original crimes, Emily concluded. Making her extremely dangerous to Ryan, Lucas said. No wonder he was desperate to silence her. Chen gathered her files. I want everything you have on the council members. If we move quickly, we can prevent any evidence from disappearing. The hospital room was eerily quiet when William Russell entered that afternoon. He paused in the doorway, taking in the sight of his former partner. Older, frailer, but with the same piercing gaze that had once helped them build an empire together. Hammond watched William approach, his expression guarded. I didn't expect to see you again so soon. William remained standing, as if unsure of his welcome. The doctors say you'll recover. Hammond nodded, but didn't speak, his expression remaining neutral. An uncomfortable silence settled between them. William finally spoke. I've given my full confession to the district attorney. 15 years too late, Hammond observed. I know. William's shoulders slumped. Nothing I do can give you back those years, Victor. I can't resurrect Caroline. I can't undo the pain you and your family suffered. Hammond's jaw tightened at the mention of his wife. Then why are you here? William met his gaze directly. Because despite everything you protected my daughter. You could have used her as a pawn, but instead you risked your life for her. I didn't do it for you, Hammond replied coldly. I know that too. William took a tentative step closer. You did it because beneath 15 years of justified hatred, you're still the man I once knew. The man who always did the right thing, even when it cost him. Hammond looked away. What do you want, William? William placed a folder on the bedside table. I want to restore your name. I've drafted documents returning control of certain company assets that were rightfully yours, including the patents you developed before everything happened. Hammond glanced at the folder but didn't touch it. Money doesn't interest me anymore. It's not about money, William insisted. It's about legacy. Your innovations should bear your name. Your reputation should reflect the truth, not the lies I created. For a long moment, Hammond said nothing, his expression unreadable. Hammond finally reached for the folder, opening it to scan the contents. I'll consider your offer, not for your sake or even for mine. For Evelyn, William finished the thought. Hammond nodded. She deserves the chance to rebuild her relationship with you if she chooses to. My vendetta shouldn't stand in the way of that. William's eyes filled with unexpected tears. I don't deserve her forgiveness. Perhaps not, Hammond agreed, but that's for her to decide, not me. As William turned to leave, Hammond added, "The foundation proposal in that folder, expanding it to support families affected by white-collar crime. That's a condition of my acceptance." William paused in the doorway. "Already in progress. Evelyn's idea, actually." A ghost of a smile crossed Hammond's face. "She's remarkable. You raised her well despite everything else." Later that afternoon, Lucas found Evelyn sitting on a bench overlooking the Ravenswood waterfront. She glanced up as he approached. "Detective Sinclair." "Lucas, please," he replied, settling beside her. "Mind if I join you?" "It's a free country," she said with a faint smile. "At least, it is for those of us not currently in custody." Lucas chuckled. "Your father's cooperation is going a long way with the DA's office." Small comfort. Evelyn's gaze returned to the water. "Do you know what the hardest part is? Not the betrayal or the lies, but the fact that part of me still loves him. Is that strange?" "Not at all," Lucas replied. "Love and judgment exist in different parts of the heart. One doesn't necessarily cancel out the other." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Evelyn spoke again. "I'd been thinking about what happens next. After the trials, the media circus, the inevitable corporate fallout. And what have you decided?" "I'm staying at Russell Enterprises," she said. "The board wants me to step away. Bad optics, they say. But I refused. I'm going to use my position to right my father's wrongs, starting with the Hammond Foundation." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Hammond Foundation?" Evelyn nodded. "A joint initiative between Russell Enterprises and Hammond Industries, or what will be restored of it, will provide support for families affected by white-collar crime, particularly children who lose parents to prison." Evelyn tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "The foundation will also fund legal support for cases of potential wrongful conviction in financial crimes." "Ambitious," Lucas noted. "Necessary," Evelyn countered. "My father's actions didn't just hurt Victor. They created a ripple effect that touched countless lives. The foundation is a start toward addressing that damage. And your father? What role will he play?" "That depends on his sentence," Evelyn replied pragmatically. "But he's committed to making amends in whatever capacity the law allows. It's complicated, loving someone capable of such betrayal while working to undo their legacy." "But possible?" Lucas asked gently. Evelyn smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "I believe redemption is always possible, Detective. It just can't be given. It has to be earned through actions, not words." 3 weeks later, Lucas stood at the edge of the Russell Estate's formal garden, watching through the conservatory windows as history unfolded. Inside the glass-walled space, William Russell and Victor Hammond sat across from each other at a table laden with legal documents. Their legal teams flanked them on either side, while Evelyn stood at the head of the table, presiding over the proceedings with quiet authority. Emily joined Lucas at his observation post. "Quite a scene, isn't it? If someone had told me a month ago that those two would be in the same room without armed guards, I'd have called them crazy." "Life is full of surprises," Lucas replied, watching as Hammond and William signed document after document, officially restoring Hammond's reputation and establishing the joint charitable foundation that would bear both their names. "The DA says William's looking at 5 to 7 years, with the possibility of early release for continued cooperation," Emily informed him. "Not exactly justice after what Hammond suffered, but justice takes many forms," Lucas finished. "Hammond told me that himself." Inside, Evelyn stood watch over both men. When the last document was signed, she collected the papers herself, reviewing each one carefully before nodding her approval. "She's going to be formidable when this is all over," Emily observed. "She already is," Lucas replied. As the legal teams began packing up, Lucas watched Hammond and William exchange a handshake. Brief, formal, but unthinkable just weeks before. "Ready to go?" Emily asked, turning back toward their car. Lucas nodded, taking one last look at the tableau before following her. It wasn't perfect justice. Perhaps no human justice ever could be. But as Hammond had said, sometimes justice was simply the truth finally being heard.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel for new videos every week.